technology. Today we have a broad audience across the world. Good morning to the participants in the US, good afternoon to Europe, and good evening to the ones that are participating in Asia. My name is Demet Tunc. I'm the Council Director for Customer Experience Council at the Conference Board. Before I introduce my speaker and the topic of the day, let me update you on a couple of housekeeping rules. During the webcast, you can ask questions through the chat box at the bottom left of your screen. You can also download the presentation after it. The content will be available for you to view it also after the webcast. Please feel free to share it within your network and also with your colleagues. There will be a file download pod at the bottom of your screen, and the presentation and the webcast will be available on demand at the Conference Board website. We would be very happy if you could give us your feedback at the end of the webcast. There will be a small evaluation form. If we hear you, we will be able to further improve ourselves. By watching this webcast, you can also gain CP credits. To be able to do so, you need to stay live. You need to stay online throughout the presentation, and there will be some pop-up screens during the presentation which you need to click. All right, we are now ready to go. Welcome, Hugues. It's great to have you here with us.
Hello.
Let me first introduce you to the audience before we start. Hugues is the CEO of Havas Media Group here in Belgium. He's also a teacher at Solvay Brussels Schools of Economics. He's got 25 years of experience in communication agencies and is part of the WPP, Interpublic, and Havas networks, which are amongst the top 6 networks in the communication industry. He's involved in the digital industry for more than 20 years. He's a passionate leader and a follower of the digital world. Today, he's going to walk us through the challenges that today's advertising is facing, and he will give us his insights on how to save advertising. Right, Hugues?
Yeah, that's totally correct.
All right. So you say that advertising is under pressure, and today as consumers, we are paying premium not to see ads. So is the advertising world dying, or is it still hope? Is there still hope to save it?
That's an excellent question, and I will start with the beginning. Hi to all of you. As you mentioned, I was graduated in '92 from the Brussels Schools of Economics, and my thesis was about radio, '92 radio, the future of radio. And I've got a quite correct mark in '92, 19 out of 20, which is not too bad in Belgium. And the reality was not a line was about internet. So in '92, I write a very good thesis about the future of media and the future of advertising without any line about internet. So my provocative subject of today, which is about, yes, is advertising dying and what do we have to do, is, well, something about my love about advertising, and said, well, we can change things. And obviously it's my bread and butter, of course, because it's 26 years that I do that type of job, but the world is changing. So in
it's very dynamic, right? It's not the same as it was 26 years ago.
Exactly. And I have that chance to start in a world in '92 without internet and to jump in the internet world. In '96, I had the chance to conduct my first campaign, digital campaign. It was for Mercedes. It's not about advertising in that case, but I like to say it. And it was my first very interesting campaign. And then I conducted a lot of advertising campaign on internet and in the digital world. And what I would like to say and I would like to share with you today is, well, we learn a lot of things, but we have still a lot of things to do. So we are never to forget that we do advertising, real advertising, and not to be too focused on technology or on digital world. So we will try to mix that and find the best way in the 45 coming minutes. Well, the first thing is to say is, well, advertising is under pressure, obviously, as you see on that slide, a lot of the big six are fighting to find the best model. And well, we learn a lot of things. Digital was amazing in terms of opportunities, but at the same time, it changed the world so much that it was quite complicated. It was complicated for a few reasons. And I will start with something we all know, but just to as a reminder. The marketing world is far more complex than 30 years ago, 20 years ago, or 10 years ago. A few things about that. Remember the 80s. Maybe some of the people in front of their screen were adults or teens in the 80s. Well, it was quite easy doing marketing at those times. Well, you had a few channels, a bit of TV, radio, out of home. Of course, print was amazing, and no internet at all. And the 90s was starting. It's exactly what I mentioned. In 95, in the US, 94, we had the first campaign, and then emails. Will I do some emails marketing or not? It was well, complicated, but quite easy to handle. In the 2000, that was booming, of course. In the 2000 years, nobody remember that, but Google is just out in 98.
That's recent.
Yeah, that's quite recent in the
Yeah.
in the history of the world.
Yeah.
It's just very, very recent, of course. But then you've got microsite, online video, YouTube was starting, LinkedIn, which is one of the oldest social network, is 2003. All those stuff was starting. It was amazing tools to do marketing, but it was more complex to handle it. And of course, today it's full of different opportunities. We have all those stuff together. The people are going to the shop with their smartphones. They can search for everything. We talk about real moment at each time. So it's more and more complex, more and more channel. And that's quite normal. We as consumer, and I'm sure you do that like this, you would like to have a very integrated experience with the brands and with the channel. So it's more complicated than ever. Just to give you one figure, 98% of the Americans switch between devices in the same day. So in the 80s, you've got your TV channel, my own newspaper. Nowadays, you switch from one to another.
Yeah.
You start with TV during your breakfast. Then you take your smartphone. Your smartphone allows you to see some news in the tube, and then you arrive at your job. You take your computer, and then you have I don't know, 6, 7, 8 different channels in the same day.
Yeah, in the past it was all traditional media, and there were direct ways to reach the consumer. But now today the companies need to find creative ways, right, to reach to the
more
consumer
creative and
also connect with them emotionally, probably.
Certainly, and we will come to that in a minute. Well, it's quite invasive. We have more and more channels, more and more messages. So where is it possible to be able to be well perceived by the consumer? So 98% of the Americans, I think it's quite the same for the Europeans. And if you consider the world, well, I was in Asia a few days ago. Mobile is everywhere there. So well, it's more complex than it was before. If you do business, that changes things also. Remember 20 years ago when you have to buy something. When you have to buy a car, it was quite easy.
Yeah.
You go to the car dealer. And if the car dealer was a good seller, the deal was done.
Yeah, you would choose the color of the car, and now today you have the opportunity to compare everything.
They will do a lot of other things.
Yeah.
You will compare, you go to the website, you go to the car dealer, why not? You will go to Facebook, you will ask to your friends, why do you choose that car? And a lot of other things. And if it's not for a car, it's for a lot of even other type of products. You go with your smartphone everywhere. You go to the shops with your smartphone.
So the decision-making process is very different compared to 20 years ago, right? For the consumer.
I can just agree to what you say. And then I will show you that with that slide. That slide, I hope. Yes, it is. In a minute or in a second. Sorry. But the idea was to show how complex it was, how complex it is today, and how it was quite simple before. Before, you have just to discover the product, you explore the capacities of the product, you buy it, and then you engage. And now you've got that quite complex, as you see on the slide. So you, at the same time, use all the channels, and that's quite complicated for the advertiser, quite complicated for the marketeers, quite complicated for the companies. So where is my potential consumer? What I have to do? So we are in a far more complex world than we were before. That's the first thing. You know that. You know that, and that's quite easy to understand. Another thing, and this one is quite amazing, is the volume of communication. That has changed in a very fast way. I don't know how many contacts we have. Do you know how many contacts we have with brands every day? Yes.
I don't know, thousands, or I have no idea.
Yeah, that's about thousands. You're right.
Yeah.
We measure that it's about 5,000 ad contacts with brands. Is it about advertising on TV, on the net, in the real world? So you have more and more contacts.
But how much of it is relevant for the consumer?
That's the real question. That's totally the real question, of course. But there is a very interesting figure about that. 15 years ago, your attention span when you decide to say, okay, I'm interested with that message, was about 12 seconds.
Okay.
You said, okay, I've got 12 seconds to understand the message. Nowadays, we are around 8 or 7 seconds. And the interesting thing, just to give you a very representative figure, do you know how long is the attention span of a redfish?
I don't know.
9 seconds. It means that everybody knows that a redfish will forget everything after 9 seconds.
Okay.
So in that way, I just would like to mention that 8 seconds is quite short. Yes. And you asked the question very well, and we will go clearly in that direction. It's about to be representative. It's about to give the right message to the right people at the right time. And that's a part of the...
So that they spend more than 9 seconds on...
The reality is not to say each time the same thing. And the reality is, is it possible to reach those people and then they spend the needed time to understand what you like to say? But there are a few rules to do that. And that's what we will discover today.
Okay, super exciting. All right.
There's another thing, and that world has changed, obviously. People are ready now to pay to have media without ads. Think about Netflix. You're ready to invest about $10 to $15 a month to have a media without ads. It's the same for Spotify. And that's an amazing good news. Spotify is about all the music of the world, and you pay your $10 to $15. Yeah. So it's an amazing change of the industry at that stage. That's quite interesting because do you know how many people in 2020 will pay in the US and in Europe? How many people in percent, of course, will pay to have access to services like Netflix or Spotify?
I don't know. I guess it would be a big amount, right?
Yes, otherwise I will not ask the question.
We already pay a premium not to see it.
No, but that's quite interesting because you have to consider the whole population, of course. It's about more than 50%. More than 50% of the people will pay for services like Netflix, Apple Music, Google Music, Amazon, all those stuff, and there are a few competitors, which is quite interesting, of course. As I said, I'm a advertising lover. It's my bread and butter, but at the same time, the people are ready to pay to have access to more interesting content, as they consider like this, without any advertising. So advertising.
So will the media channels go bankrupt, or is this an opportunity for them?
That's a very interesting question. They will enter in that type of business. They do that. There will also be that type of platform where you can have access in a business where you have to pay to access to those type of content. At the same time, they will continue to be amazing platform when you have news. You will have things you can share with everybody. So The business model are moving, of course, but it's for another conference, and that's a good subject, obviously.
For the next webcast.
So the thing is, and that's a reality of the, I will say, 2011, 2012. People are stopping ads more and more. They have found the technology which are helping them to not to see the ads. And that's quite complicated because you ask the right question about the media owners. How is it possible to own a media without advertising? It's okay when you're Netflix because you have your own model, but for the majority of the other models, you need a part of the money coming from the advertising business. And that's an interesting question. Why do people are stopping ads, or many people are stopping ads? But just say that from 2014 to 2017, we were 16% of people blocking ads on their computer. Now we have 32% of the people. 1 people out of 3 said, I don't want to see those ads, which is a failure, of course. And that's a problem. And that's for the US, but if you go to more larger figures, if you take the global world, it's 11%. It was 11% in 2017, which is obviously a problem because, to be honest, the people who block ads are certainly the most educated people. So in the advertising people, it's a part of the people you would like to reach, of course, the people where you need to advertise. So it's quite complicated at those times. We will come in a minute to the cause of that and why do people block ads, of course.
In the meantime, Hugues, we have some questions from the audience.
That's the good news.
They're asking, how do you ensure that the content is relevant for the consumer so that they don't block the ads?
I love the question. Thank you to ask that type of question, and we'll come back to that. And what I will do is to be a bit prospective today. Is it possible to find the right content for the right people? That's a part of the thesis of today. So please stay online. We will give you the answer in the 15 minutes.
Okay, thanks for the question in the meantime.
Just a few things also. Young generation, who are the people who block the ads the most? It's the millennials. And we love all those other generation, younger generation, who are, and that's interesting for millennials. Those people coming born in as from 2000. Those people who don't know the world without internet, and that's quite interesting, or without the digital world. The same time of people knowing the world without internet are blocking the ads the most, which is a problem at the end. So they don't see what they would like to see on the net, and we know that they are the future of the world. So it's interesting that they know the world better in terms of digital, and at the same time they don't like ads, or they don't like advertising business in that digital world. So in my opinion, we face a real problem in that
Unless
case.
the content is relevant, I would say, right? If the content is relevant, they wouldn't care if they see a brand or not.
You seem to know the subject quite well, but yes, we will come back to that also.
I see myself as the consumer, so if I like the content, I'm willing to read.
I will give you
a paragraph about
the simplest sentence about that is about Google. We all know that if you go to Google, you will have, and you ask a question, you'll have free content and content paid by advertiser. For the majority of the people, if the content is relevant, they don't care if it's advertising or not. They would like to have the right content. And that's a good question. A part of what we do is not about to brainwash people, is to give them interesting things. And that's a part of what you will see also. And the second thing is the one size fits all. Doesn't work anymore. The magic of advertising of the 30s, Henry Ford, and the car is in black, and that's the color, and there is no other choice, but you will love it in black, is no more true. So we have to think how to face those problems and make it as opportunities, of course. Just to give you a figure, even if it's 2015 figures, but ad blocking, when the people refuse to see the ads because they found the technology to don't see it, it's about $22 billion even in the US. So we miss something. The industry is missing something. So, well, there is something to do, of course. And why do people block ads? I don't know if you block ads, by the way.
I do a lot.
Thank you. I will be bankrupt. No, that's not the reality. But the first thing they say, I was on an interesting content, and then it was interruptive. So 73% of the people said, I don't want to be interrupted at that time. Or I don't, and the real point of view is, I don't want to be interrupted by something less interesting than what I see at that moment or what I consume as a content at that moment. Sometimes they say it's annoying. We have to do it better.
Yeah.
Of course, we have to do it better. Sometimes they say it slows down the web browsing. Why not? That will be solved by the capacities of the networks, and that's not a real issue, obviously. And sometimes they say, and I think it's very, very important, that it's irrelevant. Yeah. The one I think the most important one, in my opinion, is interruptive, annoying, irrelevant. Yeah. If you take that, is it? Yes, if you consume a piece of interesting media, you don't want to be interrupted. If I would like to say something to you, if I would like to convince you that my ideas are the best, they can't be annoying. It makes sense, of course. And it must be relevant. It's another way to say it, but you have to understand the people in front of you, what they would like to say. And in some cases, it doesn't make any interest to try to convince somebody to buy, I don't know, some car if they don't need it. Yeah. That's about that. That's about irrelevancy.
Yeah, this is then wasted money for the companies, right? Because they want to be relevant, they want to be top of mind in the minds of the consumer, and with the ads that are coming at interruptive times for the consumer, they are actually serving a purpose which is opposite than the objective. They are creating this very negative link with the consumers.
That's quite true. I say that quite quite frequently to my students. Sometimes you do too much advertising will have very negative effects. Too much is it's quite complicated to handle. Please cut at a moment. And that's where, if I make a summary of what I mentioned, maybe our mission has failed. Because coming from the 60s, where it was an abundant society, everybody would like to save things. We have less product, less media, a few people who like to spend some money. Today we have more media, more product, and then we have to be smarter than we were before. A few illustrations of that, and just to be sure that we're on the same page. Even if the figures are from 97 to 2011, it's exactly the same. You see that on that slide that the volume of communication was quite low in 97, and we are talking about 5 trillion of messages for the whole world in 2011. But the most important figure is about the fact that in 1997, when we started to do advertising, the response rate of advertising was 7%. Nowadays, it's 0.1%. So, and that's about, yes, there is a kind of ad fatigue. I don't think that people are against advertising. A few people are, of course. But the majority of the people understand how the world is. It's a kind of trade-off. It's logical that if you don't pay TV, you have advertising. If you pay €1 or $2 for a newspaper, there is some advertising in the newspaper. But if there is more advertising than news, you will not pay any more. And that's exactly what it is about. I like that sentence because it's coming from one of the best artists coming from the US, by the way, very, very open guy. He's also a businessman, will.i.am. He said, but I look at the metrics and I said, I will not pay attention to what you give me. The guy is a super artist. He's quite creative. He said, it's not working like this. You have to change the way you do it. Stop not to be interesting. And it's a bit, it's It's well said. I don't give two shits about it. Yeah, but okay, it's a part of the world of the reality. So we have to do it in another way, of course.
In a smart way.
In a smart way, in a funny way.
In an engaging way.
Educating way. It is about that. At the same time, there was something amazing from, I will say, 2005. We have more and more and more data about the consumer, about you, about myself, but globally about the consumer.
And we don't realize it as consumers, probably.
I think that consumers do realize better than before. I will come back to that in a minute, talking about GDPR and talking about Facebook analytics and all those things. But we give more data, and sometimes it's comfortable. If you give data to a brand, it will be to a media, certainly it will be comfortable. You will have a better experience because you give data to your newspaper, because it will be a better newspaper, digital in a way. It's the same with Netflix. Netflix is using the data to give you a better experience. You will not, the recommendation will be better because they will give you the best recommendation. Okay, we had access to all those things, and artificial intelligence is analyzing a lot of things. Obviously, we are able now to understand your voice, to recognize you. If you take a picture of somebody, after 1 minute on my smartphone, said, would you like to send that picture to that people? And it's working quite perfectly, so we have access to a lot of things. We know where you are. All those things are there. So
but these are all good things, I would say, because it gives clarity on the user experience, on the customer experience, right? For the companies.
Totally right. If you use it in the best way, it's totally right. It's the best way to do it. I'm not sure we have done that like this till now, and we will come back to that also, to a few rules that we can use to do it in the best way. Because remember the first time you went to do that website where you can buy some shoes, and said, wow, those red shoes are amazing. And after that, during the six last month, you had red shoes ads everywhere you go. It's not the good way to do advertising. In the real world, we don't do that like this. So what I mentioned is, well, we have access to data, we have access to practices, technical practices, we are quite good, but at the end, we're still serving generic intrusive ads. That's not the good way to do it. It's not the best way to have a better experience for our clients. It was invasive, interruptive, and irrelevant. So exactly what the people mentioned at the end. And sometimes it's maybe because it was so easy to use techniques coming from the digital world, but not thinking at it as a real advertiser. So that's a part of the thing we have to think about it, or the realities. And yeah, I'm sorry about that thing about data, but if you live in Europe, and if you live outside Europe, you're quite lucky about that. But we have a new regulation about which we call GDPR, Global Data Protection Regulation, which means that it's more complicated to use data, which is maybe a good thing, obviously, because well, it was a mess. Now we try to do it in the best way. Once again, I say one thing: if I'm a media owner or a brand, and if I'm a consumer, it's a trade-off. If I'm the consumer, I give you some info coming from my data, information coming from my data, because I would like to receive something in response, and I will have a better experience, or I will have a better opportunities coming from the brand. But that must be right, and it's about balance. At the same time, I will not come back too long on the Cambridge Analytica, but we all know that it's close to a lot of quite interesting subject, even politics in that case. Well, data could do a lot of things. So I think that you have to be better, to be more ethical if you like to continue to have to generate great experience, to be positive for the brands. That was my point at this stage. Last things, 2 times the same figure, but not with the same reflection. Brands, obviously, a lot of them do a lot of efforts to give content to the consumer, but 60% of what they do is not perceived as meaningful. So there is still a lot of things to do, obviously. And it's not only about advertising. They try to do, they invest. We have to understand what is the best solution for the right people. You know that I said the same thing for 25 minutes, but it's about to target the people correctly. It's about to give them what they want. It's about to be able to produce meaningful advertising. And at the same time, that's the last figure before to jump to the solution, because I think it's quite important not to jump to the solution. And we already mentioned it.
Yeah.
You mentioned it clearly. 61% of the people said, as long as the content is good, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's coming from anybody or a brand, which is quite a good news. We can see an opportunity there. So that was my conclusion for that first chapter.
I said that as a consumer, but apparently the data also proved that I was right. Okay, good.
So I don't know if you remember when the advertising business started, I will say in the mid of the 19th century. So, and
well, I'm not that old yet.
No, but everybody thinks that the advertising was starting in the mid of the 20th century in Madison Avenue. We are always seen Mad Men and all those guys, but it started before. My point here is after 180 years of existence of business, we are at a very crucial moment.
It's evolving.
We have to do something, and that's exactly my message. There is no time out, no second chances. It's now or never. It's now or never, because we have to do things. And well, it's advertising fatigue. We have to save advertising. Our challenges, in a nutshell, and I will say in another way, but that's exactly what we said before, is to add value when you communicate. That's what the people are asking. In fact, I look for content. Looking for content is I need some value, understand things better, or have better experience, or be entertained. That's about adding value. And be relevant. A very good advertising movie could be super good for my wife, and a very bad experience for my father. It could be the reverse, by the way. So, if you understand what I mean. So, that's based on context and behavioral relevance.
I see.
That's the part of the answer I would like to share with you today.
Okay.
Considering the world and giving a message based on 3 words, and I like because it's a 3A words where we have to work. It's about to handle better the audience. It's about to understand how addressable media is working, and it's about to do better advertising, and I call it advertainment. So
this is new vocabulary for
the
me.
Advertainment is not in the dictionary
yet. Okay, it will be added by Hugues Rey.
I don't know if by Rey, but by somebody. So let's think about audience, addressable, and advertainment for a minute. So okay, let's start with audience. The first thing, audience, what are we talking about? As I mentioned, we have access to a lot of data. And what we forget, and what we forgot for the 20 last years, it's not only about data, it's about understanding data and doing something meaningful with those data. So it's about transforming data into information, meaningful information, and then insights. Insights is the opportunity to change the way I will do things. Data is just a lot of things. And there are 2 generations in that world. People which were doing advertising without internet or without the digital world, people coming from the digital world, and sometimes we were led by data. Just said, I will follow the data, and that it would work. And we don't have that step behind, said, okay, if I use the data, if I understand the data, I will take better decisions. That's the first thing. In other words, it's coming from what we say from reach to audience. When I started my job in 92, my job was to buy TV spots. And they said, well, you have to reach PRP, Principal Responsible for Purchases, 1844. Okay, it's a lot of people. And by the way, everybody was thinking, that's woman 1844, which is not totally true.
Which was based on demographics.
Good demographics, which was not too bad, but it's a lot of different people. If you look at those things, if I was able to describe those people differently, football lover, for instance, I don't know, driving some type of cars, working that type of business, you will have a far better description of those people, and you will change the way you will do advertising, of course.
Yeah, that would define the way of the effectiveness of the advertising, the return on investment based on the right reach, right?
Certainly.
That's how
we will see that in one
as
minute.
a client on the other side, that's how I would pay my media buying agency.
Clearly, that's the first thing. But the second one is it's about pollution. If you target the people correctly, you don't do advertising on people who don't care about advertising. And about your 5,000 message a day, if you can reduce it to 500, the people you targeted will be more receptive to the 500 than to the 5,000.
Exactly, yeah.
So that's quite that's advertising ecology in a way. And that's interesting because if you take the same profile here as you see on the slide, it's the same guy at the end. But if you are able to understand that the guy is dreaming for a cabriolet instead to have a big car because he's got five children, kids, sorry. But that's quite interesting. So that's exactly what we have to change. It was complicated in the 80s, the 90s, or even in the starting of the 20s. But now it's possible. We have access to more and more data. We have just to think in that direction. And that's coming from a socio-demo to persona. Ability to describe who are those people. That's just an example in that case. As you see, it's about travel. And travel is amazing. Majority of people are traveling, a big majority of the people. It could be business, leisure or pleasure. Sometimes you travel for business, and you travel for business for 2 days, and then the weekend you stay where you are because and that's interesting. That's not the same type of people. So if we have to describe that on top of the socio-demographics, we will do advertising in a total different way. Not using the same media, not using the same message, not using the same way to tell the story. We'll do just to be sure that we are on the same page, and I will do that with you. So that's quite funny, and with you all around your screens. But let's go a little bit further than just socio-demographics. So I will describe two guys.
So here there's a quiz question.
Yeah.
So I would ask the participants to join us online and send us their responses to this question, and let's see who got the right answer.
I will describe them slowly, so you have time to think about them. So the first guy is born in 1948. He was educated in the UK. He's married 2 times. He's got 2 children, quite famous. He's successful in business and he's quite wealthy.
Okay.
And guess what? The second guy is born in 1948, grew up in the UK, married 2 times, 2 children, successful in business and wealthy. So what I would like to ask you is, who is the first guy? Who is the second guy? Do we have any answer?
Any responses from the audience? Who do you think this person is? Born in 1948, grew up in the UK, married for the second time, two children, successful in business, and a wealthy guy. Who could this person be? Somebody says, is it a pop star?
The second one is a pop star, yes. Not the first one.
Okay, I've got only one guess from the audience, so I don't know.
Okay, but that's not too bad.
Okay.
What do you think, Demet?
I don't know. It could be anybody. It could be a friend of mine.
Just to to make the story not too long, but the first person is from the royal family.
Okay.
It's Prince Charles.
Prince Charles, yeah. Charles. I've got 3 responses: Prince Charles, and Charles.
Okay, and that's quite interesting. It's about the second one.
That's Ozzy Osbourne.
That's Ozzy Osbourne, and that's quite interesting. That to say that Prince Charles and Ozzy Osbourne has got. If you describe them like this, it's exactly the same.
So this is not based on demographics then. If you want to do an effective ad, if you target these 2 profiles based on the demographics, you waste your money.
Yeah,
probably.
Probably, yes. Maybe they love the same things, but I will not I'm not sure about it,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
So that was just an opportunity to say demographics is super important, but if you're able to do it, to do your job better, to describe them, to talk about your targets better that you do, is going better. If you know that, and that will be the next question or the next opportunity to say, is it possible if you consider a crow, or if you consider the global target, just to select the people you would like to reach? And that's where we talk about, I will go from reach to audience. I will be able to understand the people better, and on top of that, to reach them better. And that's my second point, addressability. The media is changing, obviously. We've got opportunities. Addressability is the opportunity to mix context, the best place to find people, and content, to give them the best content. And then you got this opportunity, which is connectivity. It's a bit technologic, but not so much. That's what we do every day with digital, when we do it well. Sometimes we do it digital, but not in a very good way. And that's, well, we put together the content, the context, and the content. We will go to a few examples, and that's what you mentioned. And yeah, it sounds a bit complicated if you look at the graphic, but I will make a summary in that case. You can say I will reach 400,000 people for a price of 10, but if you've got only 10% of the target, which is really the people you like to reach, it's not useful. Of course, you will pay 100 for the global target you would like to reach. If at the same time, in a correct context, you can reach but the 10% you would like really reach, you could be ready to pay 65 at the end, because it will be less expensive. That's in terms of mathematics, it makes sense. But in terms of I would say advertising, it's even better, because reaching only the people you like to reach with the correct context, it's ecology, it's advertising ecology in that fact, because you don't pollute the people with things they don't need. It means that globally, all the messages will be better. So that's extremely important. Is it possible to do that? We do that already in digital when we do it well, and when we are not too greedy and want to push too much. But that will be possible in television. That's what we call addressable TV. Addressable TV, it's the opportunity to say, from one house to one other, I can change the message. And we do that because we've got set-top box. So all the things we can collect from the people in front of the TV, or from their internet connection, or from their mobile connection, and we know that everything is connected, will help us to take decisions. So we will have a version A of the spot, of the TV commercial, a version B of the TV commercial, and you will not broadcast another one. So you will decide to reduce your volume. And that's working more and more nowadays. So that's a great opportunity, but it means that at the same time, you need to understand your target better. If you don't understand well, you will have a very basic way to do it. That's not useful.
Okay. I've got a question from the audience, Hugues. They're asking if TV is still going to dominate the big bulk of the media spending.
That's a very, very interesting question. I will answer with a few figures. 80% of what you will see, what you consume as media in 2020 is TV and internet globally, or TV on internet. But globally, various versions of TV will still be very important.
Okay.
If you consider the average of what is spent today in the world in terms of advertising, the majority of the ad spend are still television.
Okay, so TV is still an important channel.
Yeah, it's still a very, very important channel.
Okay.
But, and that's where it's interesting, we have to make an evolution of television. So it's more addressability, it's more dedicated content, it's more and more channels, it's about what we see about Netflix, but it's still something important. It's still something in the family, still a place where you will see very important things. Let's think about the World Cup or all those events. It's also about, well, we produce more and more content than ever. It's a quite good experience, by the way. We all know that it's a better experience to see I don't know, house of cards on a big television, not on your smartphone. All those things are still true. And the question is quite true because there are a few good books from the starting of the, well, I will say the 2002 about the 30-second advertising is dead. It was about the TV is dead and the 30-second advertising is dead. And there are two questions in the same sentence.
Correlated,
yeah. So TV is not dead, 30-second.
It's not dead either,
not dead. Yeah. So that's about that point. But that's a good question, of course, when you have to face that. We'll not use the. I've got a short video that you will not use today, but just an example. Coca-Cola was working on a program for years now, which share a Coke with somebody. So that was you got your name on the bottles, and they were able to do with 4D 4 million personalized TV ads with your name. So
wow.
That was a very interesting and funny way to use television as a mass media dedicated to people. So and you have just to say, I would like to send that ad to my friends, and the television, well, the system was working on television. So it's dedicated, it's entertaining. So that was a part of what you like
with
to
an
do.
emotional connection. Yeah.
An enormous emotional connection. Yeah. Of course, that's why it's huge, of course, because when you feel rich and well, by the content, you will stay in front of the content, you will react, you will share that. And it's what we call earned media. You will tell the story to other people in other medias. So that's exactly what we like to do.
Okay.
Just an example, and the slide is in Flemish. Just to remember that we are in Belgium. But, we have done just experience now for 1 week in Brussels airport with Deco, so it's out of home, and BNP Paribas Fortis, a bank, where we change the content of the out of home panels in the airport according to out of which flight you will take in the airport, which means that if you're coming from Turkey, we will change the message coming from BNP Paribas Fortis, said, okay, that's the price of euro, that's where you have to phone, and we cost a lot of data to do that. So we check where your flight is arriving, really, not theoretically, and we all know that sometimes there is some few differences. Where is the gate? What is the language? It works for all the flights. So are you coming from Tokyo, Turkey, I don't know, Zimbabwe? We are able to change the panels, and that's exactly what you mentioned. We are talking to you. So that's about emotion. So it works also like this, and it means it's not only about TV. It's also out of home. It's digital. It will be radio when we have access to data. Okay. That's where we access to the last part of what I would like to share with you: advertainment. Advertainment is doing better advertising. Just an example, a very short one, and yes, it's one of the US, and once again, it's out of home. The panel, as you see on the slide, was able to check all the cars. So, and the panel was has got a camera. They check all the cars behind the panel. They've got artificial intelligence. They said, oh, that's an Evoque, so a Range Rover. So when you get down the panel, they said, hey, you driving the Evoque, you have to, why don't you try the Lexus?
Wow.
Once again, it's talking to you.
Are people aware that artificial intelligence is touching them continuously in a daily routine?
Oh, that's a very good question. It's also a good subject about artificial intelligence. But we 33% of the people said that they are reached by artificial intelligence in their real life, and the reality is that 70% of us are reached in a way or another by artificial intelligence.
So people are not aware. Not everybody is aware.
No, and then it's even worse than that. Among the 33% said, I know perfectly artificial intelligence. They don't understand that artificial intelligence is changing a lot of things, changing the price you pay, changing what you will receive as communication, changing the content you see on your television. That's so. Well, the 10 coming years about artificial intelligence will be amazing, obviously. Will be amazing, obviously. My Last example, and it's to conclude, is a short movie about a series, quite a bit controversial, provocative. The series about the young Pope. But we decide, BATC, which is one of the agencies of the group, decide to promote the series, and we use artificial intelligence to understand what people were saying on the net and to give them an answer. So you will see what's happening, and we can maybe launch a video in that case. Okay, launch video in that case.
There's a new Pope in town, His Holiness Pius XIII, and he has his own series on Canal+, The Young Pope. Different, unconventional, iconoclast. He decided to show the world how modern he is, not by shouting it from the balcony of the Vatican, but rather on social networks, by addressing in particular the millions of sinners to be found there, and by replying to each of their posts in real time with witty answers and quoting only the Bible.
Stephen, just shut up and go yourself.
Love each other in the same way that I have loved you. John 15:12.
Trump just called Clinton a nasty woman. Seems more appropriate.
Avoid all perverse talk. Stay away from corrupt speech. Proverbs 4:24.
But since this man is not a god, just a pope, and since he has to answer millions of people, we gave him a digital aid in the form of an artificial intelligence, shaped in his image, powered by IBM Watson, and baptized Amen. It knows the 39,000 verses of the Bible as well as he does, thinks like him, and is as compassionate and humorous as he is.
Freshly arrived pizza. Time to feast.
But when you give a feast, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind. Luke 14:13.
Flagrant foul on Ronaldo. Is the referee blind?
Be silent, and I will teach you wisdom. Job 33:33.
Just run 10 kilometers in 50 minutes. Who's the best, losers?
Do not keep talking so proudly, or let your mouth speak such arrogance. Samuel 2:3.
Practical when you're dealing with millions of people. 1 million replies generated by our artificial intelligence. 4 million people reached. The best launch for a series in France. Not bad, right?
Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. Ecclesiastes 12:8.
So here we are, I think. Interesting, I hope.
It is very interesting, yeah.
So just to have a reminder about that. So 1 million messages. But the interesting thing is to cross the 39,000 verses of the Bible and what people say on the internet. So that's why we need artificial intelligence, of course, and engage them in a very entertaining way. So that's about advertisement, of course. So that's where you need artificial intelligence, because you need the scalability. It's impossible to a human to check the 1 million message, and even for a human to check, is it a sentence in the Bible which talk about your sin in a way. So it was working perfectly well. And that's interesting because it's not, at the end, it's not only about artificial intelligence, but about creativity. Yes, people were thinking about that great idea. So I think it's time to go to the conclusion or wrap up. One of my message, you understand it, is about, sorry about that, audience addressability advertisement. That's, in my opinion, the best way to do better advertising. Target the people better, find the best way in the media, and continue to be to produce the best content, to deliver the best content. Another message, and I clearly believe in that, so after 26 years in that business, it's about ethic and self-regulation. Good advertising is ethic. Sometimes it could be rude, sometimes it could be a bit different. The example of the young Pope is the example of the young Pope, of course. But at the end, you need to be ethic. And to be ethic is to be honest with the people. To be honest with the people is super important. If I know something about a consumer, I have to use it in the best way. So it's a trade-off, and we have to be smart about that. And it will be the clue to leads into the meaningfulness. And I will very conclude on my last point of view, and it's a point of view based on a global overview of marketing. Philip Kotler was using the 4P of marketing, and I'm sure a lot of us knows that about place, about product, about price, about promotion.
That's dead, or not yet?
No, sometimes it's super useful. Sometimes it's super useful. Sometimes have good basics is super important in life,
but it's not enough.
It's moving. It's moving. So it's moving from product to service to cross product is a bespoke offer. When you buy, I don't know, Netflix, when you pay for Netflix, you would like to see all the movies, but you would like to have the recommendation. That's service-based product. Price. Well, we are moving from price to value.
Value-based pricing.
Yeah. And value concretely will not pay the same for the same things. So we are out of the Henry Ford point of view in that case. And place is changing, of course. The way we do shopping, or the way we interact with brands, or anything is changing. And my playground promotion is changing clearly. It's about engaging, entertaining, and educating. That was what I would like to share with you today.
Okay. I don't know, very interesting.
Thank you for that.
Thank you so much for sharing your view. It was very engaging and interesting. Well, thanks to all the participants for watching us. Actually, media and the impact of digital is one of our hot topics that we will discuss at the Customer Experience Council. So for anybody that would like to get more information about it, I have my colleagues' contact details here. Till next time, we have another webcast on another important topic. I would like to say goodbye to all of you and have a good day. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.